Snively, what color is my heart?
Who is this man? This man has 1,000 names. Baldy McNosehair, Bloated Buffoon, Dr. Predictable, Mustache Moron, King Dog of Toragmania, or simply Boss. He has changed his face and outfit 1,000 more times. He has been a god king, a petty trickster and a tyrant, but also an innovator, an interstellar champion for Earth, and a groundbreaking inventor. Each universe has a version of him, and there may be a bit of him inside someone else, or inside you, or inside the hidden gears that keep the many worlds that share this Earth in order. But just who is he? With an IQ of 300, the unforgettable Ivo Robotnik, nicknamed Eggman, is certainly recognized by the whole world. But who truly knows him? The press, when it is not concerned with comparing him with Theodore Roosevelt, antagonizes him at every moment, trying to portray him as essentially evil. Eggman might not be an angel, he certainly is not a pleasant person to be around with, and beyond that he sure is not a feminist, but rather a sexist womanizer. But to jump from that to evil incarnate is to fool ourselves. Really, it is an act of neglect on our part, because Eggman is not crazy, he is simply a tormented character, halfway between a romantic visionary and a victim of the way our society handles affection and attention. Allow me to explain. The mainline Eggman was born not more than 50 years before the events of the last Sonic game. Raised by his grandfather Gerald Robotnik and inheriting the genetic and material legacy of a dynasty of scientists and intellectuals, the whole world saw in him a promise and set high expectations on him from birth. However, just as hastily as Gerald exposed Ivo to the public eye, he hid him away from it. Even worse, he left his grandson alone and forgotten as he obsessed over his new project, that of Maria and the Shadow Project at the space colony Ark, that would soon get shut down by the international military apparatus organized around the gang organization. In this state of despairing, neglect led Ivo to focus fully on the only thing other than a human that could look him back in the eye, that of the robots he could build, which would become his formative obsession. Unlike Gerald and other humans, to Eggman robots are functional, they deliver on what is expected of their role, or get appropriately discarded and turned into cheap decorations if they don't. That is to say, expectations in machinery are mandatory, a consistency in care that Ivo lacked as his father figure. Put a pin on this, because the Oedipic void such a situation creates in Eggman's heart shall become relevant to his politics as wannabe dictator. If this is of your interest, we recommend checking out Punished Felix video on the Sonic movie, linked in the top right corner. Anyways, seeing that he is kept in a forceful drought of affection, Eggman grows up to seek a substitute in the public attention he was so promised. Developing a serious case of egomania, he time and time again seeks to establish an empire over the world to affirm an inescapable cult of personality, sustaining his low self-esteem through an ever-expanding world of robot subjects who he expects to simultaneously fear, admire, and love him. And whenever he fails, he at least makes the headlines on the way. In a way, such a behavior reminds me of the real case of the pathological liar Enrique Marco Badle, who claimed to have survived the Holocaust to build a political career that would ensure his media presence during 90s Spain. Sonic and his varying team of space creatures always rise up to the occasion, of course, but this hardly stops his undying determination.
It's no use, give up!
After all, they give Eggman what he desires. Through violence, he achieves the attention of the great powers put at stake by the destruction of his genius and wealth, thus receiving Sonic's attention by merit of his efforts. It is of no help to the case that Sonic hardly never intends to de-escalate the situation, as he often verbally abuses Eggman and leads him further towards the path of silent self-resentment and despair. But to reduce the analysis of Eggman's imperial pursuit to a brute reflection of his psychology is to once again shorten our sights. The human mind is much more complex than that. it has the ability to make the subjective become objective, to empower it even more within the subject. In this case, Eggman produces a personal ideology, rooted in many different political philosophies of our world, in order to produce a justified narrative for his pursuit. What I propose is that Ivo is so deep in his condition that Eggmanland is no longer for him the direct, raw satisfaction of his megalomania. It is a self-projection in the form of a society he genuinely believes to be ideal. What exactly is Eggman's plan after he conquers the whole world? I think three major points stand out. First, the Robotnik dynasty is without a shadow of a doubt transhumanist, pun intended. Where Gerald Robotnik pursues biological enhancement through working with what is already given to him by nature, Ivo precisely seeks perfection in denying naturality and humanity as much as possible. He seeks to, as put in his own words, secure our animalistic body vessels in artificial and industrial machines that shall use us as power sources. Perhaps Robotnik's ideology would best fit that of a real-life counterpart, the Italian futurist and bundle of sticksist Filippo Tommaso Marinetti. In his Futurist Manifesto, Marinetti nails a concept very dear to Eggman, that of the superiority of machines in regards to portraying orgiastic beauty through violence without cause or contemplation, chaos and destruction. The genocidal attitude Eggman sometimes presents is thus not unexpected, but his understanding of humanity's sheer inferiority to the technological has more connotations than simply capabilities enhancement or jingoism. Among the vices cited in Eggman's critique of the human race, we can also count world hunger and misery, echoing that perhaps Ivo seeks to establish a post-scarcity society akin to the Marxist project. Such a vision aided by Eggman's focus on mass entertainment, specifically theme parks over work. He is a conqueror and invents to conquer, not simply a laborer with a work ethic. And perhaps his abolition of scarcity entails the abolition of work itself. Despite it all, Eggman would have no doubt been critiqued by Marx, perhaps calling him a blankist for believing that elites and great men can bring the revolution from above to the lower classes. Anyways, returning to the Oedipic themes in this portrait of Ivo's psychology, being devoid of a father figure is pivotal to Eggmanland as an ideological proposal. Philosophers Deleuze and Guattari, setting on from their critique of Lacanian psychoanalysis, propose that individuals and states have a tendency to identify the figure of the father in a multiplicity of areas, oftentimes to reinstate authority beyond mere firepower. This tendency, that they name faciality, is a fundamental characteristic of every single one of Eggman's pursuits. Lacking a father figure, Ivo artificially inflated his ego, thus making his own visage the father face, and from then on, he plasters it on every ship and flag to fulfill the oppressive Oedipalization he desires but lacks deep within. Faciality is also a recurring theme in bundles of sticksism, due to the nature of its micropolitics of desire and the need of their propaganda machines to produce icons for mass adoration. So it is coherent with the explicit part of Robotnik's idearium. Going beyond, Eggman not only sympathizes with bundles of stickists like Marinetti, but he even shares intellectual ancestry with them, as shown when he claims himself to be a romantic or a genius, with the intent to portray his opponents as dilettantes who don't know what's good for them. These hero archetypes produced by European Romanticism have a faciality in and of themselves, as they rest on a metaphysics that posits grand ideas such as God, man, spirit, unity, or freedom as alive, present, and actively manifest in everything that the senses can perceive. On a final remark, one of Ivo's bold utopian stances is uniquely philosophical. He seeks to abolish free will, seeing it as a nuisance. What motivates Eggman to be a normative determinist? His scientific outlook on the world, which enables a dogmatism of causality, surely plays a role, but it is unclear in exactly what way. Perhaps Eggman wants us to not be physically able to fool ourselves with the belief of free will, forcing us into better, grander lives by artificially developing a more fatty love of destiny, against a generational legacy of Christian guilt, much like that of Nietzsche. Or maybe he believes that free will does exist, but can be abolished through the regulation of behavior and should be abolished from the ensuring of maximum happiness in a utilitarian calculus. That would not be a new standpoint within scientific discourse, as it can be found in Walden 2, the utopia posited by the behavioral psychologist B.F. Skinner. Ultimately, Eggman fails every single time, not for the outlandishness of his ideology, but due to the blindness that egoism inflicts on his judgment. He fails to recognize that the means by which he seeks to build a tyranny over Earth are the very thing that raises the opposition of an entire world who believes in free will and nature, that cannot possibly be conquered before it is at least partly persuaded. Even if he were to find people who supported his beliefs instead of employing robots, and even those rebel against him, what sane person would not realize that the way in which Eggmanland tramples over the current world hegemony would cause a destruction much greater than the ability it could have to improve on it anyways? Despite it all, we choose to believe in the sincerity and good faith in which Eggman holds these twisted beliefs, for three reasons. Firstly, when Eggman Nega, Ivo's future descendant, arrives at Earth, his antagonism towards him stems from more than just Nega's understatement of him as a past disgrace. He sees Nega as having lost the point of Eggmanland due to his mechanical sadism that consumes him into a methodical and artistic violence set on no cause in particular. In this and many other cases, Eggman is also shown as partly able to overcome his god complex, and even his pathological toxic rivalry with Sonic, when the Earth is put to the brink of destruction by forces different from him. The absolute peak of this redemption can be seen in the very soul of Eggman, if only his childhood had gone another way. In the Sonic comic series, Eggman is not born on Earth, but rather on Mobius, Sonic's home planet, as Obi Quintobor. Without any Gerald or Maria to suffer neglect from, Obi's genius focuses on helping the world, enchancing a young Sonic with his iconic boots and fur color, as well as being, in general, a good scientist. When the Metallics go out of control and invade Mobius, he even sides with the Resistance, becoming the leader of a great revolution. But like any great ecologist revolt, this pursuit is doomed to fail, and seeing this, Sonic understands he has no choice but to turn Obi into an evil reverse version of himself through a lab accident. This way, when the inventor of the Metallics arrives, the made evil Eggman recognizes him as a peer and works with him to build the Metallics invasion. And when Eggman realizes that they are about to slip out of his control, he can switch sides to the Resistance, with game-changing knowledge of how the Metallics were built in the first place. Sonic committed a great evil in the past to ensure a better future. And that makes him more Machiavellian than Eggman ever could be. And with that, that's all for today's episode. Thank you very much. If you have liked it, please do subscribe, hit the bell, even leave us a like or a comment if you like this kind of content and would like to see more in the future. This has been David, and we have just done a futile conquest.